Have you prayed over your launch, tied when it hurts, and still you feel like you're drowning? Will this be another one of those years where you're carrying a weight that God never assigned you to carry? Not next quarter, not when things calm down, now. The thing is, maybe you're constantly pushing, overworking without getting a break. I know because that has happened to me so many times. And you're getting this burnout diagnosis and you're adding what I would call a Bible verse to it, right? Hi, I'm Andrea Russell. My clients have generated over $15 million in collective profits, all because they stopped guessing where their money goes so that they can finally pay themselves and steward their resources well with God, not for Him to fix later. By the end of today's training, you would have 10 real doable ways to tune your business back up without adding one more thing to your plate. This is not a to-do list. It's what I would call a permission list instead. So if this resonates with you, I wrote an entire book about it when business becomes heavy. Grab it now. The link's in the comments below. But if you stick around, I'll tell you more about that later. On a scale of 1 to 10, how heavy does your business feel right now? Go ahead and drop that number below. So here are 10 things to tone up your business that worked for me. Think about this. I want you to think about something for a second, right? You must name the weight that you're carrying because the Bible tells us to ask, right? But we have to be what I would call kind of specific, right? We can't be vague asking God. Obviously, He knows, right? He knows everything. So He knows what you're going to ask Him before you do. But it's about that relationship with Him. He wants you to ask Him. So it's not about really about having what you would call that a new offer. It is about having a tune up, right? Imagine that you're constantly driving your car without getting a tune up. How do you think that car is going to eventually sound? Wouldn't it eventually stop if there is no tune up on your vehicle? So here's what your business tune up actually looks like. So number one, pray before you plan, not after you panic. Stop using prayer as damage control. Make it the first move, not the last resort. Have you been using prayer as a last resort? If you have, let's change that today. We had a client who thought she needed a full rebrand of her business. It turns out all she needed to do was stop for a second, and stop saying yes to every discovery call. And 6 weeks later, she was less busy and more profitable. So sometimes it's just about stopping for a second. Number two, stop checking your calendar for just meetings. What about checking your calendars for margins, right? One thing I realized is that a full calendar is not proof of your faithfulness. It is just proof that you're busy. And those are two completely different things. Number three, ask yourself, what are you doing out of obedience versus doing it out of habit? There are some things that you do because the Lord tells you to do those things. And then there are those things that you do because you did it last week, right? It is extremely important for you to know the difference. Stop measuring the week by followers. Raise your hand if you're measuring your week by followers. Let me just put my finger up there, right? I'm guilty. I'm not saying that traffic is not important, but measuring it by piece, I think, is a little more important, right? It's so important to living what I call that happy life as a business owner. Growth without peace isn't really growth. It's just what I call a bunch of noise, but without or with better numbers, I would say. So are you measuring by followers or by your piece? Say no to one thing this week that drains you, even if it pays. One thing that is hard to admit is that money doesn't make an assignment yours. In fact, discernment is what makes that assignment yours. Ask the Lord for the spirit of discernment so that you can get rid of what is constantly draining you. Number six, there's an app on your phone that you're avoiding opening. You haven't opened that app and you know that you should be opening that app, right? So, so here's why I want you to open that app. I want you to stop avoiding it. Here's why. Because when you have clarity, half the battle has been won. Clarity is not punishment, it's actually kindness when you think about it. But when we avoid things that we know we should do, we end up paying so much more than the truth ever will. Number seven, rest before you're actually forced to. 2012, I got one of my very first client, and I remember telling her years ago that they need to take some time out to enjoy life, right? They didn't. She is gone now, and right now, as we speak, her husband is fighting for his life right now. But the only thing I can think about is he constantly was working with absolutely no rest. He didn't think to take a rest. And you know what? Maybe I'm not going to say that. Maybe that was his part of making him happy, right? But remember, we were put here to glorify God, right? To give him glory. That's the reason that we're put here. And when he put us here, he made so much for us to enjoy. And part of that is not to work ourselves in the ground without taking a rest. And here's the thing about it, right? God rested first. So he provided that model for us. So we're not above his model. And number eight, tithe because of your obedience to the Lord. Trust God and trust the math. In other words, fear gives reluctantly, but faith gives first. And the thing about it is, that's the commandment where the Lord says to prove it, to prove him and see that he will not pour out a blessing. So go ahead, trust him and tithe because of your obedience to him. And number nine, ask yourself one honest question at the end of the day. Did you build this today or did you just perform it? When we build something, what we do is we build it quietly. We do it quietly without fussing. It reminds me of something that my mother said when I was little. She would always say, you don't have to let your right hand know what the left hand is doing. For a long time as a kid, I'm like, what in the world is she talking about, right? But she's telling me I don't need to tell everything that I'm doing to and to people, in other words. She's saying sometimes you just have to keep it to yourself and you don't have to let the right hand know what the left is doing. So, how about building your business in quiet? Because performing is what needs an audience, right? And finally, number 10, end the day with gratitude instead of a scoreboard. Gratitude is what should be closing our days. When we give thanks for all that we have experienced, all the opportunities that day, and for all the opportunities that happened that day, and those that are yet to come, I think that this is a way of us just closing out that chapter and moving into the next. Because every day is literally a new day that has never been here before, and it's not ever coming back, right? So we have to make the best of every opportunity. And so gratitude to me is all about closing out that day. So when we close with a scoreboard, it keeps everything open instead of closing out the day, right? So instead of closing with the scoreboard, gratitude is closing the doors to open that new one for the next day. So there you have it, 10 ways to tune up your business. Pray before you plan. Check your calendar for margins. Ask what you're doing out of obedience. Stop measuring the week by your followers. Say no to one thing that drains you. Open that app that you've been avoiding. Rest before you're forced to. Tithe like you trust the Lord and ask, did you build this today or just perform it? And finally, always end the day with gratitude. You don't need to wait for a slow season to fix this. There's no slow season, there's just today. And what you do with the weight you've been carrying is important to lift that weight. So, if any of this names something you've been feeling but didn't know how to put it into words, that's exactly what when business becomes heavy walks you through. Go ahead and grab your copy now. It's available on Amazon. The link is in the comments below. And the next time, next video, we're going to be talking about, are you actually hearing God or just hearing yourself? See you next time.